10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello and welcome to a very, very special event. I have been looking forward to this for months. Without further ado, I've got two incredible guests. It's the first time they're appearing together on camera or meeting each other. I want to get them introduced as quickly as possible. So first of all, we have the manager and lead designer of the original Palitoy Action Force toy line. It's Mr. Bob Brechin. Bob, how are you today?
I'm okay, Tony. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Very well. Very well.
You're up early, aren't you, again?
I am, but being a British toy line, I really wanted this to have a suitable viewing time in the UK, but then also in the United States for the fans of the Valaverse Action Force. So I drew the short straw, and I wasn't going to ask my guest to get up early in the morning or anything like that. So, and speaking of the Valaverse Action Force toy line, we have the president of Valaverse, the lead designer. It's Mr. Bobby Vala.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Tony, Bob. Thank you all for having me on this monumentous stream. I'm nervous and excited. So,
You're not the only one.
There's nothing to be nervous about. Nothing at all. If I can get my mouse to work, anyway, that would help. First of all, we've got Tac Tac Toys with Film. Sends in a super chat. Thank you very much. He says, first off, great idea for a stream, Tony. Thank you, Tac Tac. I did ask Bob. I wanted this to be kind of part of Iconicon, but Bob's about to go away on holiday, aren't you, Bob?
Yeah, going off to Scotland to the Outer Hebrides to Stornoway.
Well, and next week I'm off on my big adventure to the United States. So my last day at work's next Friday, so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, we are here today to commemorate 40 year of Action Force. So I thought the best way to get into this discussion is to dial it all the way back to 1982 or possibly even 1981. And Bob, tell us first of all what was the reason why Palitoy decided to take their popular 12-inch Action Man and shrink him down to this smaller scale and introduce to the world Action Force?
Star Wars.
That's the answer.
Do you want some more? Do you want some more? Well, obviously the flagship product of Palitoy was Action Man, which had been going on since 1966. You know, I joined in '67, so I picked it up and started designing things for Action Man. And then Star Wars came out in '77 in America. And Christmas '77 in the UK. And then the toys came out in '78, and Star Wars started to shake in his boots, as it were, because of the change of scale.
Yeah.
And also the fact that space was big. I mean, before Star Wars, space films were like B films, weren't they? Except for things like 2001, which was sort of a one-off. But so when Star Wars came out, it just changed the whole of toys, really, or the whole of action figure toys. But it did change the toy industry as well. So in we tried doing Action Man in space with the Space Rangers.
Yep.
I think people know the Space Rangers, but it was scale and Star Wars, really. The scale, a 12-inch figure costs a lot to make compared to a little 3 3/4 inch figure. So you can get a lot more for your money. So that was the problem. So to try and keep the Action Man brand going, marketing decided they wanted to shrink it down to Star Wars scale. You know, and then put the Action Man logo on as well as Action Force logo. So it kept that to keep that continuity. You know, so that was the reasoning. Yeah.
So a question that I've never, I suppose, asked you before, Bob. Like I know how proud you are of all the stuff you worked on at Palitoy, but so we spent a lot of time together, around more than 10 years ago when I made my Action Man documentary. Yeah. But then over the last few years, when I've started doing these mini documentaries on YouTube about Action Force, I've started to look. Are you actually a little bit more proud of the work you did on Action Force? I kind of got that impression because obviously Action Man, you were taking a Hasbro G.I. Joe concept and then doing outfits and things. Whereas when you shrunk this down, you could almost there was a theme there, but when it came to toy design, you could start fresh.
Well, when I started with Action Man, I was a young student. Well, I'd just come out of college basically, and I was a bit idealistic. So. You know what students are like in those days, a bit anti-war, weren't they? So, and I came into and I got into adventure and exploration.
Yeah.
To take, because we had the name Action Man, it wasn't like G.I. Joe where he was a soldier. He was an action man. So he could everything was to do with action. So he didn't have to be a soldier. He could be anything. So we did sport. We did football players or soccer players, if the Americans are listening. We did, all the different teams. You know them, Everton and Manchester United and all those. And then we went into adventure with underwater explorers and jungle explorers, so we could spread it. Spread the brand, and we really carried on the military side. We carried on with what Hasbro had done, which was copy things, right?
Yeah.
So they started off with copying, what do they call it? The soldiers of the century, was it? Or was that us? I can never remember.
Soldiers of the world. One of them was soldiers of the world. One of them was soldiers of the century. I never remember which way around.
Well, they were all based on the Second World War. I mean, this was in 1967. What's that? 20 years after the end of the war, and then we went into sort of things like contemporary uniforms, like two para and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so we were basically copying. It wasn't until a guy called Greg Hughes came in, and he started using his imagination a bit more, and he came up with a special team, the Ground Assault, a bit like Bobby's what Bobby's doing now, really, I suppose. That sort of thing, you know. So, so Action Man, I liked Action Man. It was great to work on. I love working on the ceremonials. I mean, they're copies, you know. There's no imagination there. But when it got to Action Force, and we reduced it down in the first year, we had to reduce it down to 4 inches. But marketing made us copy the 12 best Action Man outfits. So you've got the German Stormtrooper, 2 Para, Frogman, and so on. And then
something like these, Bob.
Yeah, that's the ones. Yeah. So these are the 12 there. Yeah. That was the 12 outfits we were told to shrink down.
Yeah.
To Star Wars size. But you say, which one do I like the best? It's when I came on to the second phase of Action Force, when we had a new marketing team in, and they wanted to change it completely, and that was something fantasy. To follow the Star Wars theme, basically, and other things that were happening in fantasy. And that's when I really got into myself, because I used my imagination more. So, and then, of course, I came up at the end with Roboskull, which, you know, probably my proudest achievement. So you asked me which was the best, or which I like the best. I like them both. But I found my imagination went full flow when I got to Action Force.
Yeah, yep. We'll just catch up on a few super chats here. So, Toy Connection. So Tac Tac Toys with Film. First off, great idea for a stream, Tony. Thank you very much. We have Toy Connections. Thank you. It says Action Force. Then, now, forever. Let's hope so. Hello, Tony, Bobby, Bob. Full force, time for action. Fuller's Figures, thank you. He says, just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Bob for my childhood. You made it really special, sir.
That's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for the same thing, Bob, and also thank you to Bobby for making my adulthood so special.
Yes.
Tac Tac Toys with Film, he said he had a Baron Ironblood as a child. I'm completely all in for Valaverse Action Force. They're one of my 2 main lines now. I just paid for Desert Rat. Can't wait for Series 3 and 2B. Who's this Desert Rat he's talking about?
I don't know.
some lame character. I just pigeonholed him.
Yeah, so I think for a lot of collectors, what gets us most excited about Action Force is that second year when they introduced the different teams. So you had the 4 different Action Force teams, and then of course the Enemy, which a lot of people call the Red Shadows, but actually brand marketing wise, it was just the Enemy. Bobby, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick here. So we've got the Space Force, the Q Force, the Z Force, and the SAS. Do you have a favorite?
Definitely the Z Force. But like SAS is like right on their heels. Z Force was just, I don't know, it had everything I wanted. You know, I'm a big fan of more the green color palettes. I mean, but you know, obviously the black SAS, there's something cool and badass about that. But I don't know, you know, I'm just looking, you know, up on my wall. It's like, you know, the radio operator, even though he's just a radio operator, there's just something very cool and compelling about that figure. You know, the infantryman had, or, you know, he was really interesting and different compared to like, you know, Sapper. So, you know, to me, I think, you know, the Z Force was more, you know, up my alley. Plus, the APC is my favorite G.I. Joe vehicle ever. And I have every single version ever made of the APC, including this version, which is the armored troop carrier. But this version is my favorite version of the APC because it's so awesome. And I think even with the headquarters, this whole green camo motif, this was the ultimate team, man. So
did you like what we did inside it, Bobby?
Yeah. The fact that you took out, a whole row of seating and made more function with the comms and then the stretcher area like that. It made the APC more useful, even with the turret on the top giving it the hatch and the missiles compared to the GI Joe version. It was just, you took what they did and said, all right, they made a great vehicle, but let's make it better, and you made it so much better.
I think they considered it as more of a carry case, didn't they?
I think so, yeah, because I had the figures with the seatbelts and the carry handle on the back. But to me, it's just a cool looking vehicle. As simple as it is, I love it. But this one, perfect.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to get the seatbelt or the stretcher today is very difficult. Yeah, I think the GI Joe one is very much like the Star Wars, the Rebel transport. The big they call the giant flying pickle, where it was primarily a storage case for because you could pack in 30 odd figures or whatever. I was aware of this toy when I was a kid. It's a toy that I wanted, but I never got. I actually when I was a kid, I actually got a lot of the enemy team stuff. I remember having the Laser Exterminator and Red Laser and all those things, but really wanting the Z-Force and the SAS stuff. It wasn't until a long time later, like when I started researching the Action Force videos, that I learned what Palitoy had actually done to the interior of this vehicle. This is no longer just a troop carrying case. You've got the medical bay and the improved turret and weapon storage and all sorts. So, and rubber tires. Yeah, all the GI Joe stuff had very much had hard plastic. So Bob, there is something incredibly iconic about the simple two-tone green and black camouflage pattern, which I was a very military focused kid when I was a child. I was into military films, military themed toy lines, and every kid likes a bit of camouflage. But there was something about this just stark two-tone, deep olive green and black. Do you know who came up with the color scheme? Was there a lot of discussions? Well, do you remember there being a lot of discussions about what the color scheme should be and that kind of thing?
Well, we had a model maker called Kevin Heath, and we used to get him to spray things up in different colorways,
Yeah.
So I think probably it's just the green and the black. So it's just one spray. So it must have been cost, So we couldn't. We had probably had some with 3 different colors on,
Yeah.
4 different colors on, but when it came to costing, they said, no, you can only put one spray on. So that's probably what it was. But Kevin would have been the guy that would have been directed to spray at the different versions,
Yeah. That's a great answer. I'm sure you can relate to that, Bobby, from your time at Hasbro.
Oh yeah,
gosh, you can only have so much, but if it is limited to, hey, we're going to mold it in green plastic and we can only have one paint application, I think they nailed the choice, because that's something that makes this particular team within the rest of the Action Force line so iconic for people. Yeah. Should we catch up on a few more super chats? I just want to keep up to them so we don't have a big backlog. So Brian Dillingham, thank you very much. He says, have fun in Georgia. I will. I'll also have fun in Rhode Island too, I'm sure. Joseph Dickerson, thank you. He says, safe travels to Georgia. Did the trip to and from Australia over a dozen times a decade ago for work. Keep hydrated, and I'll see you at Joe Fest. Thank you. I'll do that. And Wolfie762, thank you. He says, sounds like a great play scenario. The Flying Pickle and the Z-Force rolling gherkin of doom. Love these vehicles. Excellent. Well, I'm not sure, Bobby. When do we tackle the Roboskull in this live stream? Do you have a question you'd like to ask Bob about the Roboskull, or?
Are we on to the Roboskull already?
Well,
I think
that's what people want to hear about.
The one thing I wanted to know about, like, because I know how we worked at Hasbro, and I've talked to guys and how it was in like the 90s and the late 80s, but what was the production schedule timeline for you guys during this period?
Oh, crikey me. Hectic.
Hectic. But like, as far as like time,
I had to cut corners, Bobby. I had to cut corners.
I'm sure.
Because I came up with I don't know if you got that photograph of the original clay version, Tony.
I'll find it.
But
give me a second.
I sculpted. I mean, the Baron Ironblood. He was he had a symbol which is the skull and crossbones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was my idea for that because I thought these guys were like space pirates. There it is. That's a sketch that Greg Hughes did for me.
Yep.
After we finally got to the final design of what he was supposed to look like, because we went through different stages, different figures. Some in different colours, you know, like a black version and a red version and other colours, and then some with cloaks on and this, that, and the other. We eventually ended up between design and marketing with this guy. And I said to Greg, can you draw him up? And we want a skull and crossbones on the front. Because that's going to be the symbol. Because he's the leader of a load of sort of modern day pirates. All these misfits that he's been picking up from all around the world. You know, they don't fit anywhere. And he's sort of brainwashing them into working for him. So, so when it came to year 2, first year, we can talk a lot about the first year, but we perhaps come to that in a minute. But second year, I thought they need a decent vehicle to fly around in. So I sketched loads of different schematic things, like on fag papers, you know.
Yep.
On fag packets. we just scribble, and I was scribbling all these different ideas on wheels, flying, water, and all this and the other. And then I came to this final conclusion of a big skull that a figure could sit in, that could fly along. So I sculpted it up in clay, and I've made some wings to go on it out of plastic. It's all handmade, which of course you don't do these days. And took it to marketing, to what's called a new products meeting, along with the Skeletron, which I thought was the pilot. And I put it on the table, and I thought they're not going to go for this. It's a bit too way out. But they did. So they did. And I said, well, there's the pilot that goes in it. And they said, no, that's not the pilot. We want a different pilot. So I had to go away and design a different pilot. And of course, the Skeletron became a mail away. And then, of course, marketing want it out next year. So this is sort of springtime, end of spring. They want it out next year. Now, you know, Bobby, how long it takes to do things. You have to make prototypes. You have to, in those days, you know, to make prototypes, you have to take it apart and you have to draw out the components. And then you have to get quotes in for tooling and this, that, and the other. Get costings and all sorts.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that luxury. So in fact, John Hawkes, who was my boss, he was the director of design. He put me in touch with this company he worked with before, a company called Rayleigh Technical Design down in Essex. Now they had capability of prototyping, hand prototyping, and drawing, you know, on a drawing board.
Sure.
Because we had drawing boards in those days.
Yep.
No computers. You had to do it by hand, big drawing on a great big drawing board. So they had that capability. So I went down to see them and said, look, I've got to get this out. You know, I need prototypes for toy fairs in January. I need it before then because we've got to photograph it for the catalogue and so forth. So this company was able to do that. So what I was doing, I was going down sort of, well, weekly and maybe twice weekly with ideas of what to do with it. And they were sort of drawing it up and making the prototype at the same time. So that's how I had to work it. So it's completely different than what we should have been doing, where you make a prototype, you get it approved, you break it down, you see how it's going to work and how it's going to be tooled up and so forth. So it was a bit of a risk, but it came off in the end.
I always remember I think back when I was doing the Action Man documentary, Bob, and you were saying, you know, but back in those days, like you imagine, Bobby, I don't know how often you talk to your factory that's making the stuff now, you know, but you've got email, you've got phone. I remember Bob telling me, you know, back in those days, he said, you know, you would red pen some drawings and you would have to, you know, use a courier service to send them back to the Orient.
Yep.
He said how revolutionary the invention of fax was, using the fax machine.
Fax, yes.
and how that much speeded up the process. I mean, you would have had fax machine by this time, hey Bob? By the
we did have a fax machine. Yeah, we did have a fax machine. So yeah, you reminded me now. I was sending little modifications by fax to them. And of course, we used fax for Hong Kong. You know, when we were modifying things in Hong Kong. Yeah. But yeah, that was a revelation. That was fax. Crikey me. trying to explain something to Bill Pugh over the phone in Hong Kong. You know. Oh, can you do this? It was terrible. But I mean, I've got to draw it. These are you've seen these before though, Tony, all the drawings I did. Can you see them?
Oh, wow.
Not the originals. You've seen.
There's the originals.
Wow.
These are sort of concept sketches I was doing, you know. Here's one that. Just showing how it's constructed, you know, and so forth.
How it all works, yep.
How it all works, yeah.
Here's some sketches of the Roboskull.
Here's one where I was trying to get two figures in, you know, so it could have two figures. And then I thought, oh, yeah, I'll get three figures in here if I drop something down underneath and call it a brainwashing device or something.
Yep.
But you can see that the top of it is quite different there. What it ended up.
Yes, yeah.
It's like there's like a big window at the front, two windows at the back. But those, you know, it got changed as I went along, really. And then I was talking about drawing up on a drawing board.
Wow.
That's awesome.
There's the drawing. And you can see it's the general assembly drawing. So if I
or a blanket.
Or a blanket. Oh no, that's not Roboskull. That's Triad.
Ah, the Triad fighter, yeah.
That's the Triad, but it's a similar thing. I picked the wrong one out. But that's the sort
Bobby,
of thing
have you ever done, you know, when it comes to toy design, drawing like that, or have you always worked with computers?
I was I'm trying to think, because when I started doing freelance work for Hasbro, that was 2007. That I was just getting into Photoshop then. But I was still drawing traditionally. So I would draw on a drawing board and then scan it in and then clean things up in Photoshop. Whereas now I'm doing everything in Photoshop. And even when I was going to, you know, toy design school, it's like I was still drawing traditionally and we're still doing a lot of Photoshop. But then it just got to the point where everything was so much easier to do in Photoshop. It's like when I did my first internship at Hasbro, they have these things called Cintiqs. I don't know if you guys have seen me. It's just a giant monitor that you have a pen and you draw on it. And I never use a mouse. I never use the pad on my laptop. I live on my Cintiq. There are times where like I'll leave my house just to come to the office to use the Cintiq because it's so much easier to use it. And I've gotten so used to it. So once that I used it for the first time at Hasbro, I said, I don't know how anyone can go back to like drawing ever. You know, but it's the unfortunate part is like for issue 5 of the comics, I drew the cover, but I drew it digitally. And then when Robert Atkins does some of the covers for like 1, 2, and 4, and then he sends me the original art, it's like I look at that original art and I'm like, wow, like there's something really impressive about seeing the original piece, but you don't get that when you do it traditionally. So you're passing up, you know, nostalgia for time, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Bob, I know we did kind of skip forward to the Roboskull there. I couldn't help myself. Everyone loves to hear about the Roboskull. But you did send me through some photos, some various images yesterday, one of which I'd never seen before. And this is going to take us back to the original 1982 range, because one of the things about the 82 range, I remember you telling me, is that although you were shrinking down the 12 most popular Action Man outfits, the marketing team did not give you a brief to do the same thing with the vehicles. They wanted you to come up with unique vehicles.
Yeah.
What we've got here is very much. So this is the. So I'm going to get the numbers wrong here. The AF3, the AF5, the AF7. I always.
Yeah.
The AF7 is the diving platform here. But basically, this is the Jeep and the multi-mission craft. So what are we looking at here, Bob? Talk us through this.
Well, as you said, we were told to shrink down the 12 best Action Man outfits, and I said to it was Mike Taylor. He was the brand manager in marketing. He was in charge of Action Man and the new Action Force. And I said to him, the first thing I said to him was that we ought to be moving on a bit. Have you got a picture of Greg's ground assault on there?
I don't.
No,
I've got him in the other room there.
it don't matter. I wanted to. If anybody knows what ground assault is,
yes. What I do have, Bob.
Yeah.
Not that one.
No, not that one. I don't want that one yet.
Not yet.
Take that one off. This is
one?
it. Yeah, I've got the picture here. I've got the original. There we go. Yeah. So Greg designed some outfits for Action Man. As I said before Greg came, we were just copying existing or World War II stuff, basically, for Action Man. When Greg came along, he came up with this concept special team where Action Force was sort of 30. Action Man was 30 years in the future, right? So if you look at those little characters there, the one in the very middle, the sort of brownie one. I don't want that one.
What have I done? I'm trying to zoom in. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the ground. It looks a bit like that for Action Man.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if we're going to do something new, if we're going to do Action Force, we want to get away from this this World War II sort of. I mean, this is 81. 81. What's that? That's nearly 40 years after the Second World War, and we're still doing the German stormtrooper, for goodness sake, and things like that. And I thought, if we're going to do this something new in a miniaturized version, let's take Greg's designs and expand them into different sort of things and do Action Force like that. So that was the drawing I did, but it wasn't accepted. He wanted this continuity, from Action Man to Action Force. So he wanted to keep the original outfits. But I said to him then, you've got a picture, I saw it, of the Action Man vehicles, the tank and the helicopter.
Yep. That is... You sent it to me, didn't you?
Yeah, it's
Here we go.
there. It is. Now these are the Action Man vehicles. There's a Scorpion tank down on the right. There's helicopter, which was Hasbro. Scorpion tank was ours. There's a Jeep and so on. I said to him, look, if we're going to shrink down Action Man down to Action Force, are we going to shrink down the vehicles as well? And he said, no, we'll have some new vehicles. I thought that's a bit strange, you know. So we went to this company called Rafa and Pape. If you go back to their drawings,
This one.
and there's the initial sketches that they did, and I feel that if I'll show you my drawing. So can you see it?
Yep.
So those are the ground assault and the things based on Greg's designs, and I think they suit that sort of styling. I don't know what you think, Bobby.
So someone else did the vehicle designs?
Yeah, it's another company. They're a toy design company, a separate toy design company, a bit like yourself, you know.
Sure.
So they were given a brief to come up with some ideas when I was working on the figures, and that's the designs they came up with. And rather than copy the Action Man tank and the helicopter and so forth, so that's what that's all about, Tony.
Yeah.
And then they went to. There is a picture of them somewhere. I gave you. Or you might have one of the
actual toys. Yeah.
Yeah. They are. These are prototype models. These are those drawings that went to those models. So, and those models were then photographed for catalogue. They went to Toy Fair along with the figures, and that's how it went. Now, when it came to doing the teams and Baron Ironblood, these were suitable for that because that is it the AF7? Is it no? It's the AF5. It's got it on the side there. Look, the AF5 was ideal for modifying into other vehicles, whereas a Scorpion tank or the helicopter, you couldn't have modified it too well. And so forth. So it did work out well when we changed Action Force from mini Action Men to the teams.
Yeah, because the chassis for the AF5 that was used for the enemy shadow track. It was used. The basis for the Cosmic Cruiser for the space team.
Yeah.
You got your money's worth out of that bit of tooling.
Oh yeah, because they were very adaptable. They were very adaptable. So it worked in our favour eventually. But at the start, I couldn't see the logic of having German stormtroopers and so forth with vehicles like that.
Yeah. But there was this huge sort of course correction in 1983 when everything started to change. We got the teams. They took this AF3 vehicle and then they made it the Z-Force Jeep. They different camouflage pattern.
That's right.
Which I think I sent Bobby that Z-Force Jeep recently.
Yes, I think we also sold that little craft, that river craft, separately, didn't we?
Yes, you did. Yeah, so the Rivercraft became the SAS boat. So where the AF3, it was just the rooftop boat.
That's right.
When you get into the next one, they gave the Jeep to the Z-Force and the boat to the SAS.
Yeah. So
still looks good when attached together, though.
Yeah, but I don't know what you think because you were playing with these, weren't you, Tony?
Oh yeah, I was playing with these.
How did you feel about having a German stormtrooper or a deep sea diver with those? Did it worry you?
Well, the thing is, when I was a kid getting these, I don't ever remember having the German stormtrooper, the British commando, the figures, because I must have been more inclined towards the modern stuff. So I definitely had the Orange Frogman. I had the ground assault. I had the Arctic assault. So I think at that time, I was probably the more modern looking figures is what appealed to me. So I wasn't. My parents didn't get me the German Stormtrooper because I was asking for the ground assault. And then I got. I remember getting the Arctic Assault figure with the little Schemobile. And that was one of my absolute favorite. I've got a very interesting story about how I got that, but I won't go into it here. I've told it on another stream. But yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying. You know, the vehicles were very modern, and it didn't really fit. I wonder, I've got a photo here, if I can find it.
You wouldn't put a desert rat with them, would you?
Well, even now in my display, it doesn't really fit. I normally put the mail away commander goes in the Jeep, and then it's like, you know, the mission pilot goes with the AF7. What I'm going to do is I've got here, I think it's on this one. I'm looking for. I've got a photograph of the headquarters somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
If I can find it. I've got so many photos, I'm confusing myself now.
There's while you're looking, last year at Joe Fest, there was a guy, a vendor at a booth selling the headquarters. It wasn't complete. It was about 80% there. And I mulled over buying that thing the whole weekend. And I didn't do it. Yeah, I didn't buy it, but I'm like, oh man, I hope he's there this year. I think I'm going to buy it this year. But it wasn't. It wasn't the camo. I wanted the harder edged camo pattern. He had the same camo pattern that's the more organic looking camo pattern.
Oh, you mean the Z-Force headquarters?
Yeah.
I was talking about the cardboard headquarters. I was trying to find a picture of that.
Yeah, listen, if I could find one of those.
He's talking about the real headquarters, Bobby.
Yeah, I know. That's a good
one. That didn't you product test that, Bob, by sitting on it?
I did. Because we had that drop down piece that it dropped down as a runway, and then it went up and onto the top as a helicopter pad. I thought a kid's going to sit on that, so I sat on it, and it didn't collapse.
Let's take a moment to catch up on some super chats. Swift718, thank you very much. He said, "What's up, men? Much respect and thanks to you all for making this all a thing." All I'm doing is taking a couple of hours out of my day. These two gentlemen on the screen with me are the ones that are actually making this a thing. You know, Bob made Action Force what it is back in the day, and now Bobby's taking it forward into the future. So, but thank you for the kind words and super chat. Tony Robles, thank you. He said, "Speaking of Roboskull, congrats on becoming the pilot of the Roboskull Mark II. Really excited for all the amazing stuff Bobby has planned. Full force." Who's become the pilot of Robos? You have? Are they putting your face on there?
Yeah, like you. Two ugly mugs together, Tony.
Hey, Bob. I don't think it's the first time, because you are definitely that boffin figure from the special weapons team.
You did that card mock-up, didn't you? You did that card mock-up.
And James Salzberg, thank you. He says, no need to read the comment live. I'm on lunch at work, but really excited for this stream to hear such great designers. Thank you, James. And we are all caught up. Fantastic. Right, Bob, there's another photo that you sent me through, which I've heard you talk about this before. So it's a little bit like the whole ground assault sort of layout thing there.
Yeah. This one.
That's the one. So I was having a look at this last night. Let me find it quickly. No, not that one. Here we go. This is a Bob Brechin kind of whole concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is this something that you pitched for 1983 or?
Well, it's got, 1981 on there.
Oh, so okay.
I must have been having a bit of time to get my imagination going, I think.
Yeah.
Before the new marketing team came in and decided to turn it into the teams. Yeah, I was looking towards where it could go, you know, into whether to make it Action Force rather than Action Man Action Force, if you know what I mean, and take it into what was happening, you know, what was happening at the time with space and fantasy and all this and the other. So
you were always quite enthusiastic about sci-fi, anyway, weren't you, Bob?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Kraken Wakes is a sci-fi book by John Wyndham.
Yeah.
Which I read when I was in my teens, you know.
This guy.
And that's where I got the name Kraken from, you know.
Yeah.
But this was supposed to be these guys at the bottom of the screen in the green are supposed to be like Robin Hood, you know. And these guys at the top are aliens that have taken over the Earth. And the storyline is that these guys in green are hiding in the forests and the jungles of Earth and trying to get rid of these nasty guys at the top.
I was going to say the guys on the bottom had a medieval feel to them.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. You know, make it look sort of modern but medieval. Yeah.
Yeah.
As if society had collapsed, you know, and they were living somewhere in the jungle or the forests of the Earth. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that was just a crazy. I did one or two of these things. That's the only one I managed to bring out with me when I left. I was trying up all these crazy ideas, you know. I must have had time.
So in 1981, 80 or 81, 81. At that point, you know, Action Man didn't have a. I don't know if mythology is the right word. It didn't have a story that went along with it. It was, you know, you got these different outfits. So here in 1981, you're already looking towards like, hey, we need to tie this to some sort of a story, which, you know, something that Bobby Vala's obviously done with his line. He didn't want to just bring out figures. He wanted to bring out, you know, a series of comics. So you just made a comment about, you know, the world, you know, with this concept here where you've got these kind of futuristic Robin Hood and his merry men, and you know, the world is fractured. That actually sounds like Bobby's comic.
Yeah. Well, there's loads of stories like that, aren't there?
Yeah. No, so yeah, when Bob was emailing these through, it was kind of late. It was this morning for him. It was late yesterday for me. And I'm like, well, I've got to go to bed because I'm getting up really early for this stream. And then I'm like, I've never seen this before. What are you doing to me, Bob? I can't sleep now.
No, but I mean, it just seemed like, just an idea, really. You know, as I said, I was thinking up all sorts of different ideas based on fantasy and stuff, but before it was changed to fantasy.
So, was this completely your idea?
Oh yeah.
He's a personal favourite of a lot of people out there, including a friend of mine and Bobby's, who runs a YouTube channel called 2 Cents Toys. He's an American guy. He didn't grow up with Action Force, but he's got this thing about the Kraken. So this Kraken here, I'm gonna carry him in my pocket all the way to America because this is for my friend Sal.
Oh, well done.
I've got to. The Kraken's invading the United States, Bob.
Yeah. You can see that the original sculpt is different from the final Kraken.
And what was the reason for that? Like the tooling of the head, or how the figure was assembled, or?
Well, it was just a development, really.
I
didn't quite like the first sculptings, and then changed it a bit, you know.
Yeah.
But as I said, that's where the name Kraken comes from. It's from a science fiction book.
Yeah, which is well, the Kraken. That's also in. Is that Clash of the Titans, or am I thinking of something else?
No,
Yeah.
Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, I think that came after, didn't it? I think they must have pinched it as well.
Yeah,
But-
that movie was around 1980, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the book, the Kraken Wakes book, came out in the 60s.
Yep.
But the Kraken is the name Kraken is it goes back into mythology.
Yep.
Yep.
It's some sort of sea serpent, you know. But the story by John Wyndham is all these aliens living. They've come to Earth and they're living under the sea, and they start coming out from the sea.
Yep.
And that's why it's called the Kraken Wakes, because it wakes up and it comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. The Kraken Wake's also an excellent Instagram page for those of you who don't know about it. He does a lot of 3D printed.
Yeah, I've seen him.
Not just little repro parts for Action Force, but he creates new things to accommodate your older vehicles and stuff like that. So
what is it called? The Kraken Wakes?
The Kraken Wakes on Instagram. Yeah, that's
so
like if you want to replace the tiny little aerial for the ATC, he sells those, for like £2. He's in it for the passion. He's really not in it to. I think a lot of the stuff he sells at cost. So yeah, you can buy little replacement parts and stuff from him. Very, very, very talented. Actually, Bob, did you see that he's actually recreated using 3D printed parts the unreleased Red Shadows officer with the German?
Oh
officer?
yeah. Here's the original model.
Whoa.
Oh.
That's the original model. In the second year of the teams, they gave us some money. In the first year, we didn't have any money to play with, and that's why all the figures were like the German Stormtrooper. We had to make him into a Red Shadow.
Yeah.
And so that's why we took his face away and put that mask on, because that's all we could afford, because they wouldn't give us money for tooling. So all the figures that were made of action man, mini action men, had to be sort of legs and arms swapped about, and heads swapped about, recoloured and made into teams. But when it came to second year, they gave us some money. So I had this sculpted up for an officer. Here's another one. Here's another one which for the Q Force.
Never ever seen this before, Bob.
Wow.
No, you haven't, because it's been hidden away in a box.
And
that started off as an actual British sailor for the first, the mini action men. But it was never
so you
used.
sent me phototypes of the prototype of the British sailor that never got released in the first wave.
That's right. Well, I got him done up ready, for the Q Force team, but he never went in. So
that would have been a great figure.
It's a nice figure, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that Red Shadows officer would look good at the Valaverse office.
All of it would.
We might have to make him a 6-inch figure.
Make him a 6-inch figure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I'll send you the photographs.
Very cool.
Yeah. You heard it here first, folks.
There we go.
Did you design that, Bob?
Well, I got somebody to sculpt it, but I told him what I wanted.
Yeah, that's sort of what Bobby does. He comes up with a concept, and because Bobby, you didn't sculpt like the Desert Rat head, did you? That's someone else who does that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
There's lots of
lots
of different people contribute.
Yep.
I can sculpt a bit, but there's better people than me. I'm more of a manager of telling people what I want. But I sculpted I sculpted some of the thick bits. What have I sculpted? I can't remember now. Some of the later bits, yeah. I think, did I sculpt Red Wolf? Yeah, I sculpted Red Wolf.
So the pilot of the Roboskull, Red Wolf.
Yeah, I sculpted him.
Yeah.
But I could take you into even more realms of fantasy with some figures I've got here, which never got shown. Yeah.
Right. Let's see them.
I don't think anyone is sitting here going, no, we want to talk about the stuff we've already seen. Let's
Oh God, carry on then.
No, I was joking, Bob. That was sarcasm. Sorry. Me and Bob. We're just going to show us. We're just going to sit here and.
Well, sorry, I was using my imagination a lot more with Action Force and in the realms of fantasy and sci-fi and stuff like that. And I thought that the Baron Ironblood perhaps could. For year 3 and 4 and going forward, of course, it never happened. But he could get into space. He could fly off into space in the Roboskull, for instance, or another vehicle, and come across a planet. And there are characters on this planet that he would co-opt into his mercenary army, and go back to Earth. Go back to Earth with these characters, and cause mayhem, So I thought of this planet, which was, the dog star, Sirius.
No.
Well, the Sirius up in the sky.
Yeah.
Is a constellation, and there's a dog star.
Oh yeah.
So it was populated by these characters.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Right. So Baron Ironblood gets this star, the dog star, and he co-opts these guys to come and help him in his task to take over the world. But also on this planet are these guys.
Are they like cat people?
Cat people. So half the planet's ruled by the cat people, and half the planet's ruled by the dog people, and they've been fighting each other for years. So you see my crazy imagination.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you've come up with a lot of concepts over the years, haven't you?
and I thought also I thought Baron Ironblood invents a time machine. Yep. I haven't got those characters, but I didn't bring them down. But I was thinking about, he goes back in time, like to the Romans, and he brings the Romans into the future, into his world.
So he's got centurions and legionnaires.
Yeah, and the characters I've got up there are, do you know the Cyclops?
Yeah. Yep. Yes. Yep.
With the one eye, I've got a gang of them.
Yep.
Figures sculpted up. There's about 3 or 4 of them. So he brings they're big, hefty guys. He's the muscle for Baron Ironblood. But he brings them back from the past to the modern world.
Yep.
So these are the sort of things I was messing around with. But then of course it all died a death in '85.
I'm very unfortunately, yeah. It's interesting. I'm working on a video for Iconicon. I'm talking about so the 1990s Action Man stuff. I don't know if you know, Bob, in the late 90s that Hasbro did a series of a few James Bond Action Man crossover figures. So I'm doing a video specifically focused on them, but I write the script and I kind of introduce my audience to, how we got to the Hasbro era of Action Man. And it's like, I've had to tell this story so many times of, why Action Man ended in kind of 80. Action Man ended in 84, Action Force in 85. I've had to tell this story so many. I was sitting there writing, I was like, how do I come up with another way of writing these words without repeating myself? But it wasn't Action Man, Action Force. It didn't die away through a lack of popularity. It didn't die away through, it was basically a corporate decision made by, the parent company of Palitoy, who went, we don't want to develop toys in the UK anymore. We're just going to slap Palitoy logos on all this Kenner product and Hasbro product. And sell it in the UK, and that was that, as they say. Was that right, Bob? Pretty much, and paraphrasing.
Pretty much around about 1980. That's when it was global branding. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It's economy of scale, really. You know, they put 3 languages on the packaging. You know, English, German, and French. So if they're not selling in France, they can move them over to Britain or over to Germany. So you know,
like the tri-logo Star Wars card.
Yeah. So that's how it started, and it's, as I said, Star Wars changed toys, and you know, that was one of the big things with Star Wars is the trilingual packaging went on, and it was being sold around Europe. And of course they're getting the product cheaper because they're making so much more of it in this trilingual packaging, so they can move it around to different countries.
Yeah,
and then they, as you say, they wanted to come up with these sort of super brands, these super global brands like Strawberry Shortcake and Care Bears and that sort of stuff, which they can sell all around the world. Whereas Action Man was basically only being sold in this country and a bit in Australia and what have you. And we had mainline railways that went, you know, because that was British, you know, very parochial sort of toys, you know. And Tiny Tears went, and Pippa dolls and all that sort of stuff. And all this American stuff was coming in with, as you say, Palitoy was just a distributor of American toys. But the real reason Palitoy went was because of video games.
Really?
The 1983 great video games crash. And that's why General Mills wanted to get out of toys altogether, and they got rid of toys, and that's when Kenneth Parker came to be.
Yeah. So did Palitoy have some involvement in video games? I'm not a video game guy.
We were just taking it from America, put it in Palitoy packaging, and selling it.
Yeah.
But because everybody was coming into the video games business at that time, and it was all coming cheap from Hong Kong and places, the market crashed, and General Mills, the General Mills Toy Group lost about over $10 million. And then General Mills themselves, they're used to selling food, which is nice, steady growth. You know, toys are up and down, aren't they?
Yeah.
the growth isn't steady; it's up and down. If you get a good toy, they say in the toy business survives, or toy company survives on the whim of an 8-year-old. If the 8-year-old doesn't like that toy company's in trouble. So, and people got their shares in General Mills, which is a food company. Nice steady growth. They know they're going to get a good return at the end of the year. They didn't like it. They didn't like this crash. And then General Mills decided to get out of toys and put it on the stock exchange in New York, and it became Kenneth Parker.
Yep.
Palitoy went. The sign came down in Colville, and up went Kenneth Parker.
Got a quick super chat here from Scuba Pete, a good friend of mine. Scuba, happy anniversary to you and Leslie for the other day. He says, Bob, thank you for always increasing my Action Force knowledge direct from the horse's mouth, as it were.
Nah.
Scuba Pete's been a long time supporter of the channel. You know, we've actually become friends, and through my videos, he is now an avid American collector of Palitoy's Action Force. He's always buying stuff on eBay UK and having it shipped over to the States. So he's got quite the collection now. I think he's got the cardboard headquarters. He might have a few pieces missing, but he's got a cardboard headquarters. So, but yeah, in 1987, we did kind of have another period of Action Force, but it was literally G.I. Joe, a real American hero, brought to the UK because the Palitoy era had long since Palitoy's Action Force ended in like 85, and in 86 we didn't have anything.
That's right.
And then I was introduced to Action Force International Heroes, which I would later on discover it was literally just G.I. Joe, a real American hero. When they brought it to the UK, someone obviously had the foresight to go, you know, because the name G.I. Joe still had not managed to broach our borders, so to speak. You know, G.I. Joe first came over in the 60s where they went, yeah, but we're not going to call it G.I. Joe. And still in the 80s, they were very much, we won't call it G.I. Joe. So they carried on with the Action Force name, but it only lasted until around the mid-90s. And then we had a long hiatus of no Action Force at all.
Until Mr. Bobby Vala.
Until Mr. Bobby Vala. So let's jump forward then to the new incarnation of Action Force.
Before you go on, Tony, let me just point out, if people don't know, they probably do, but we brought out Action Force in 82. Hasbro brought out G.I. Joe in 82. We brought it out in January at the Toy Fair. They brought it out in February at the New York Toy Fair. Neither of us knew what was going on.
Yeah.
A lot of people out there think that Action Force is a copy of G.I. Joe, or, you know, came from G.I. Joe, but it didn't.
No.
We were both working independently.
Mm-hmm.
But they started before us. They must have started quite soon after Star Wars, I think, in the development stage.
I think originally they were planning on getting G.I. Joe, a real American hero, into toy shops in 81, but decided to hold off for another year of development for the articulation.
Because of the second, was it because of the second Star Wars film was still popular?
No. I think they couldn't develop the whole concept for all the articulation of the figures and all of that kind of thing.
That's right.
I could be wrong, but yeah, they were kind of aiming for 81 and got there and I said, no, look, you know, this is quite an ambitious undertaking for what we're trying to achieve here. Let's, if we give this another 12 months of development, because G.I. Joe was revolutionary at the time when it came out, because, you know, Star Wars had revolutionized that scale. No one had seen a figure with that kind of articulation in that scale.
That's right,
and these interesting vehicles and all of that. So,
but in year two of Action Force, we had a deal with Hasbro to take some of their figures and vehicles, as you know.
Yeah,
and the reason for that, well, it's to increase the range, but the vehicles, their figures being articulated, they could sit in the vehicles.
Yeah.
So when we took their figures, we took them for the vehicles, and we kept our own 5 points of articulation figures carrying on.
Yeah. But you made some very unusual choices, like turning Cobra Commander into a red pirate and giving him.
My favorite.
Is that your favorite, Bobby? The Laser Exterminator and Red Laser.
He's the one. The reason Red Laser's my favorite is because he started it all for me. He was the first Action Force figure I had ever seen. I never knew about the Palitoy range until I saw that figure at a toy show when I was in my 20s, and I thought it was a knockoff. And
did you?
Yeah, the dealer had to explain to me what it was, and then I dove deep into like learning more about this kind of this alternate G.I. Joe universe, and then finding out that it's Action Force and it was his own thing. So that's why Red Laser was kind of important to me, was that it was the catalyst that led me to Action Force.
All right, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But we were looking for some sort of articulation. This is a very early mock-up.
Knee joints. Look at that.
Knee joints, not in the arm though.
Yeah,
but we're looking.
It's almost like a superpowers figure.
And we're also looking at ideas like where you could get a figure in different pieces, and you could fit him together. So you could have him sitting in a vehicle, and also there we go, kneeling pose. Yeah. So you could buy like separate bits and join them together. but we didn't have time to do all that sort of stuff like Hasbro did. So we just carried on with the Star Wars 5 point.
Yeah.
So, but we were trying things like that in the early stages in 1981 when we were developing Action Force.
So Bob, you've sent me photos of those figures there, which I've used in other videos. I just thought you had photos of that stuff.
I've still got the model. There it is.
You just got boxes and boxes of stuff. Look, last year,
sitting on an Action Force museum over there.
Yeah. Look, last year when I did the interview with you for Iconicon, the people in the live chat, but then even after that, people still talk to me now 12 months later going, can't believe Bob was just pulling all this different stuff out and this and coming into it this year, I'm like, well, he did it all last year. He's thrown it all out. And here you come out, you've got the Q-Force Sailor, you've got the Red Shadows Officer. What did you stumble across another box that you couldn't find last year or something? You
probably. Anyway, I was digressing a bit just to explain the Hasbro Palitoy connection there, because as Bobby said, he was a bit confused when he saw it.
Yeah, and how long ago would that have been, Bobby, when you first found that red laser?
I was early 20s, I'd say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
early 20s.
About 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Still a child then.
Yeah, so very, very early days of the internet, that kind of thing. Yeah, so now obviously
up until that point, I'd only had Mark Palomo's G.I. Joe guides, and they never had the international figures in there.
Yeah.
So I just never knew about it. And then, before, until the internet, it's like, I just never really got all that information. And then when I saw it, I was like, well, now I got to look this up.
Yeah.
So you've gone from, you've always been a toy collector, toy designer. And so tell us the story about how, how you came into possession of the Action Force trademark. Like I know the story, but it's the 40th anniversary. We need it on record. So when did you acquire it?
I acquired it in the very beginning of 2019. Just when because I left Hasbro in October of 2018, and I was kind of enjoying myself partying while they paid me, for another 8 months. But I was like, well, I'm gonna do something, and I knew what I want. I knew obviously I was gonna stay in the toy industry, but a good friend of mine, we left Hasbro at the same time, Daryl DePriest, who was, one of the brand managers on G.I. Joe, and he wrote the original 12-inch G.I. Joe guidebooks, that sort of thing. So his knowledge of G.I. Joe is immense. And, we were having lunch, a couple times a week, every week after we left. And, he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, it's like, I'm going to keep looking, maybe go work for another toy company. But he's like, why don't you try doing your own things? Like, you'd probably be really good at running your own brand. And I was like, well, it's a lot of people that leave Hasbro tend to do that. But I was nervous about it. I like the stability of working for a company and, having, medical benefits and things like that. But I was like, well, I'm trying to think what I would want to do. And at the time, when he and I were at Hasbro in I believe it was 2016, he and I were working on the original 6-inch G.I. Joe line. And it wasn't called Classified at the time, it was called something different. And we were just about to cut tools, we'd all the figures sculpted up, we were just about to cut tools. And they pulled the plug on the line because they canceled the third G.I. Joe movie. And at that point, they only wanted to do G.I. Joe if there was entertainment behind it. So he and I knew that was a mistake because we knew that the brand could sell well to collectors. And look, Classified came out without entertainment. It sold very well. So when we left, they weren't really doing anything with it, or they were doing something behind the scene, but they weren't really putting a lot into the G.I. Joe brand. I said, you know what, they're eventually going to do something. They're eventually going to do a 6-inch brand. But I said, I want to try to, beat them to it. They got out first, but my concept got out first. So, I was like, well, I want to do some sort of military line, but do it more modern, with a little more edge to it, and not be tied down to what you have to. When you do GI Joe, you kind of have to stick to the fan servicing, which is great because you want to do those characters, and we've seen that those characters sell better when you hit that nostalgia point. But when I was at Hasbro, I was doing it more like Pursuit of Cobra, which is my favorite era of GI Joe, where it was newer, modern designs, that looked very real world military. And I wanted my line to be similar to that. And I wanted to create characters that had that same feel to them. So then, more Daryl and I talked. I wish I could remember who thought of it first or who mentioned it first. But at the time, Daryl was the guy renewing trademarks for the brands he was working on at Hasbro. So he knew all the G.I. Joe trademarks that he had to renew at certain times. Like there was a time where we had to remove a figure from a set to put a Roadblock figure in there to renew the trademark on Roadblock. And, they always renew the A-listers, Cobra Commander, Destro, Baroness, Snake Eye, Storm Shadow, Duke, all that stuff. But I think he might have alluded to the fact that there's some good stuff out there that has really good nostalgia value to it that he never bothered to renew because they had no plans on ever using certain things again. So like I said, I wish I remember who kind of mentioned it first, but it led me to look into the Action Force name. And he told me, he said, we never renewed it. So I went and I did my research, and sure enough, Hasbro let it go abandoned in 2005. So we're talking, over 10 years after, from when I got it to the point where it went abandoned. So it sat dead forever. And I was like, well, that's a shame. Like that shouldn't be that way. To me, it was like, well, the only thing we're ever going to have is the original Palitoy Action Force. I feel like that should be something that should come back and, and be rebooted in a way. And I thought, I've always loved Action Force, and it's a great name. And I thought, well, let me bring Action Force back in this cool new way. And it's just like how Bob was saying, you go from Action Man to Action Force, and then even the evolution of Action Force. It always changed. It was never just a rehash of what it was. Like, yes, you brought in some of the Action Man costumes, but right away you guys switched and started doing new characters and new designs. So, I wanted Action Force to be a new iteration. So it's kind of like when me and Tony laugh when we hear people like, well, this isn't my Action Force. Well, no, but even if Hasbro kept Action Force, they would always have evolved. The brand would have always evolved, and it would always become something new. There's always going to be new characters that get introduced, because if you just do what was done in the past, then how, you can only do that for so long. So like with Classified, I'd like to see them bring in new characters that they create, because eventually, yes, there's 400 and something unique characters in the Real American Hero line, but you're eventually going to run out of the good characters to do, and you're going to have to do something else. You're going to have to bring new, fresh ideas out there. And I wanted this Action Force to be a new, fresh idea. And that's kind of how it started. And, I told Daryl, I said, this is what I'm going to do. And he loved it. And, I kind of kept it under wraps what I was doing. And, went, legally got the trademarks for it. And at the same time, I said, why not get my favorite G.I. Joe name, and that's Steel Brigade. So I got that as well. And I said, let me do my own new take on it. And the line just kind of snowballed from there, just creating the characters and the story. And the hardest part was coming up with the story. You want you want something that hasn't really been done before, but it's hard because everything's kind of been done before, but also look at what works, what doesn't work. And, you know, leading up to the time I created it, like everyone was doing post-apocalyptic stuff, video games, movies. And I said, I didn't want to go that far into the future. So I said, well, what would happen if we just went like 8 years? You know, a lot doesn't really happen in 8 years, but enough does happen to sort of change the landscape of things. Like
well, enough's happened in the last 2 years,
right? Yeah, it's not to the point where we're in flying cars and things like that, but it's different enough that society can sort of change. And that's, you know, I was like, well, if I could look at the landscape of where the direction we're going, what could happen? And that's when I started coming up with the idea for that. And then at the same time, coming up with the characters and then designing the characters and creating them. And it's like, it was all kind of happening in parallel, you know, because it's like, I knew I had to get the figure started right away. So you're working on the designs for these figures that don't really have a fully fleshed out backstory, because you need to get production started on the figures as you're coming up with the story. So a lot of it was happening all at the same time. But that's sort of the story of how it all kind of started.
Yeah. We've got a couple of super chats here to catch up on. Fuller's Figures, thank you very much. He said, I've been collecting Bobby's Action Force, but as someone who grew up playing with Bob's figures, I'm so excited to get a legacy character, Desert Rat. Isn't it crazy to think, Bob, that this nutty guy who was sitting in his office in Iraq, who wrote you an email about 13 years ago and said, hey, I don't have any experience in filmmaking, but I want to make a documentary about Action Man. And now here we are for the 40th anniversary of Action Force. I've become one of the figures in the line. How crazy is that?
quite crazy.
Yeah, but I'm very much looking forward to. So the product is arriving next week, Bobby. That's right.
Yep.
This particular Series 2B arrives next week. So when I arrive in the States, Bob, the Action Force comic issue of Desert Rat's coming out on Monday as well. Goes up for sale on Monday. So when I arrive in the States, I will be personally autographing a figure and a comic for both you and Greg Hughes, and be sending them off to the UK. You've got to have them in your. You can just stick it in that box of bits you've got there. You know, all that other stuff.
Yeah, we'll take it out on like the 75th anniversary of Action Force. Like, oh, remember this Desert Rat figure? Oh, look at this.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Bobby?
Sure.
Do children like your stuff? So
while it's made for adult collectors, I do get a lot of messages from people that, you know, are my age and a little older that have kids that they said that they bought it and then they've gotten their kids into it. So it's cool to hear that that generation is getting a newer generation into this stuff. And the other, like, my son comes to the office sometimes and he plays with all the Action Force figures, and he has a whole bin at home with Action Force figures, and he knows all the characters. And Sergeant Slaughter was here a couple weeks ago, and he brought his Sergeant Slaughter figure with him to come meet Sergeant Slaughter. Right. So it's kind of cool to see that through him, you know, him being a 6-year-old and kind of experiencing that when it's like I was 6 when I started playing with G.I. Joe. So it's very cool when I hear that kids are into it. And last year at Joe Fest, there was a little girl who was probably 5 or 6 dressed up as one of the female characters. And like seeing that, like, that's really, really cool. You know, I'll always remember stuff like that. You know, I think that these conversations may or may not be happening, but there's a good chance that Action Force will need to be age graded for kids because it will be sold in Targets and Walmarts. So
I was wondering that. Yeah.
You know, we're on that path.
Yeah. I was just wondering whether this sort of action figure collecting thing it's a generational thing. It's your generation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether, you know, when your generation grows up like me, is there another generation going to come along and collect this sort of thing, or are they going to collect something else which they played with
Sure.
when they were young?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, I often ask myself this question, Bob, because you know, my son Zen, he's really never gotten into action figures. He had a bit of a period with Lego, but he's
Yeah.
always been about electronic games. And I'm thinking, what's he
Right.
going to collect when he's older? Is he going to
Right.
go back and have, like, you know, collect iPhone 1, iPhone 2 and have like all these
Yeah.
iPhones? So
Yeah.
I don't know, but there's another really nice YouTube channel called Noah's Game Over TV, which is run by a father and son. Bobby actually had Noah in his office last year as well. He's what's Noah, about 10 years old, 10 years old?
Yeah. I think it's 10.
Yeah, and he loves this stuff. He's actually got his own little YouTube channel that he runs with his dad, and he reviews all the figures when they come out and stuff like that. So Tac Tac Toys with Film, thank you for the super chat. He says, a question for Bob, Tony, and Bobby. Do you feel we will see more military lines in 6-inch scale emergence from companies due to the success of Valaverse, Action Force, and Classified?
So
who wants to go first?
here's the thing.
Not me, because I haven't a clue.
Here's the thing. You want to, when you create toy lines, you want to make sure that, you know, there's freshness to it. Now, granted, it's like, without what I'm doing is very similar to G.I. Joe Classified, but it's like, if you think about in the 80s, we had Palitoy Action Force and we had Hasbro G.I. Joe, so they were both kind of coexisting. But there were a lot of other smaller military lines that kind of came and died off because I don't think you can have a lot of lines that are the same genre. So you have to look at, if you're going to create a new line, will it sell well? You have to have something that's fresh and unique. So Four Horsemen have mythical fantasy characters down. Like they've got it. 6-inch, they've got it. If I were someone coming in doing fantasy, I don't know if I'd want to get into that ring because they do it so well. You know, it's like there's wrestling, but wrestling is done based on brand. It's not like wrestling has unique characters that you make up. It's done by characters. So that you can't really say that. But you got to look at genres, and you have to look at genres that sell. You know, it's like, think of something like, I don't know, like pirates. Like, you could do a whole line of historical pirates, but are pirates really popular enough to sell? I know McFarlane tried to do some pirate figures. I don't think they sold very well. You know, figures that based on video games, they kind of sell okay, but the video game crowd is not the same as the toy crowd. So there's only a little bit of crossover. So when you're thinking of like genres, you have to be very particular what you choose. So I think there's going to be things trickling out that are military based, but not full lines. I think maybe you'll see some vehicle stuff here and there, stuff that'll work within Action Force, G.I. Joe Classified worlds, you know, because Action Force and G.I. Joe Classified are forever now going to be on a parallel course going forward. And, you know, we're giving people what they need. But then it's like there's going to be supplementary things that come along that will work with these two brands. But I think we've cemented these two lines, Classified and Action Force, as the two military lines moving forward.
Yeah, I'm a collector. I make YouTube videos. I'm not in the industry, so all I can really go off is my sort of my own gut feel. But if I try and put myself in the shoes, let's say of someone, you know, whether they're a startup company or an existing company, right? We want to come out with something new. It's like, hey, you know, you've got Valaverse is doing this awesome stuff over here. Hasbro doing really well with classifieds. Why try and compete with that? You know, that's what, you know, you've got, I can't remember the name of the company, you know, but they're going off to do the Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. Totally different, unique concept.
Yeah.
I think that's what you need to find your unique concept. And yeah.
Also,
well, look, gentlemen, go ahead.
It's important to have an IP to, you know, I don't want to knock companies that don't create an IP, but you're very limited when you don't create an IP. And it's like when I created this line, I knew I didn't want it to just be generic, customizable, faceless kind of soldiers. I wanted characters to have unique stories and things like that, because I think that gets a bigger fan base and it gets more people into what you're doing when there's a story and they can relate to a character, or they hear a character story and they say, oh, I really like that character a lot because of his story. And you know, it's like Carrick. Carrick was like the sleeper of series 1. All of a sudden people started reading his story and he grew to be this super, super popular character. So that's important. And what Jason is doing with the Animal Warriors of Kingdom, he's building a world and an IP. And look at what I'm doing with Action Force. It's like we have comics. You know, we're up to issue 8 of the comics, which is awesome. We've told a lot of the story. The movie is going to start filming next year. It's like that's going to be crazy. The fact that we're going to be able to continue this story and filter out into other things. And we're having conversations with video game companies and animation studios, because when you have an IP that's a brand, you can filter out into all these other genres and get the brand out there. That's what they did with G.I. Joe. It's like it was toys, it was the animation, the animated show, then they did the animated movie, but it's like it was everywhere. It was sleeping bags, it was toothbrushes, and that's what you want. You want your brand to be able to like just finger out into, you know, like lakes or streams, just going into larger bodies of water. Like get that all out there, because that's what's important. You want to build and build and build and build, and you can't do that when you don't have characters or a story. So that's what's important. Like Classified is going nostalgic, which is great because that is what's working. I'm going modern and creating a new story, which is why I think the two brands live really well with each other, because it's like they're servicing the fans, but I'm also giving them something new and fresh, and you get the best of both worlds.
Yep, that's a really good way of putting it, and I very much agree with that. So we've got a couple more super chats here. TJC, thank you very much. He said, Bobby, would you like to pick up TV or movie licenses now that you've established the high quality products you have made?
Already having those conversations, buddy. Don't worry. Don't worry. And, We're always working.
And my dear friend Keith Knight. Keith, always good to see you. And I bet you're happy that you're not up at 3 a.m. in the morning watching one of my streams for once. It's a much better time. He says, this stream is pure gold. Love you guys. Thank you very much, Keith. Well, look, we've been going for an hour and a half. And I don't want to keep you gentlemen for too much longer here on the stream. I would like to chat to you both a little bit afterwards, if you don't mind. But I had a couple of key questions I really wanted to ask before we ended the stream. First of all, I want to talk about the future of Action Force. And the future is looking very, very bright for Action Force. Because on Monday, we have Bobby's wave of female figures go up for pre-order. This is Series 3 of the Action Force toy line. What time is it, Bob? At 10 a.m. on Monday?
10 a.m. Eastern time.
10 a.m. on Monday. These new figures go up for sale. So, I just so we don't use up too much time. I'm just looking at what photos I've got here. So I'll get you to very, very quickly tell us about Eclipse, Pandora, and the Female Steel Brigade. So Eclipse is on the screen. Yep. What's this character all about?
Eclipse is basically she's like the hero female of the Action Force team. So she's on the team with Condor and Rollout and Duster and Desert Rat. She's if you read her issue 3, she's kind of like a wild card. You know, she goes rogue a lot. Very cool character. She's got a great backstory to her. She's a prominent character in the movie. She opens the movie. Kind of giving away some spoilers there, but yeah, she has a big part to play in the very beginning of the movie. She's awesome. I love this character. She's got a very cool history to her. But as far as, design, I think she's really cool. I love her color scheme. I love the fact that she has, alternate heads. She has the Shema covered head. She's got cool gear. She's a good one. She is the quintessential good gal of the Action Force team.
Yeah. And and switching to one of the bad gals,
Ooh.
a fan favorite, and as we all have learned, Bobby's personal favorite in the line is Pandora.
Not just my favorite female, my favorite character in the whole entire line. She is my pride and joy. This is the character that I'm most happy with. Means a lot to me. So the fact that she is coming and we got samples of her and she'll go up for pre-order is like, this is huge. The fact that I showed this figure during the first Kickstarter, the one that didn't fund back in early 2019. I showed her, it was an older Paintmaster sample. It wasn't very, very good. It wasn't as good as this one. But I had time to, refine the character a little bit. And the fact that people always knew about her was cool because it was like, when's she coming? When is she coming? And now it's like, now she's here. And man, I'm so happy with the way she turned out. Very, very cool character. If you haven't gotten issue 7 of the comics, go get it now. It gives her origin story, which is a very deep, heavy story. So be ready for that. But yeah, man, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Monday, just because Series 3 is it's been on the horizon for a long time, and now it's here, and it's so exciting. The fact that it's like Series 3 is going to go for pre-order, and then 2B is getting here like the next day. It's like all this stuff is happening so fast. Yeah. And by the end of the year, like we're going to have an incredible amount of figures out, which is wild.
You already have over the last 6 months.
Pretty wild. At Joe Fest, I got a little surprise at the end of the panel. I'm going to show every figure that will have been out by the end of the year, and it's pretty impressive.
Wow. Okay.
And here is the female Steel Brigade. Now, I know that, during the Real American Hero run, there was never a female Steel Brigade trooper. I don't know if during that weird early 2000s run, if they ever brought in a female Steel Brigade, not to my knowledge, but I don't know because I don't like that era. But for me, it was like there had to be a female Steel Brigade in this line. So she is the same color palette as the Series 1 Steel Brigade. Her gear's slightly different. But this is the female Steel Brigade, which is so cool to when you see them both standing next to each other. It's pretty wild and a little surreal. Yeah. She's got some good gear she comes with, an alternate head. She's got the gold commander head, which is nice that it's not, this one will be easier to get. Yeah. Yeah, that's 3 of the real big ones. I mean, listen, Kill Switch, she's also just as important as these 3 as well. She's a great figure.
Yeah, apology. I don't know what happened. Right. I didn't grab a photo of her.
That's right.
But yeah, all the Series 3 goes up for sale or goes up for pre-order on Monday.
For pre-order, on Monday.
Issue 8 of the comic about Desert Rat goes up for sale.
Bam.
There we go.
And then the cool thing is at Joe Fest, there's going to be a lot of reveals for Series 3, more Series 3 stuff that hasn't gone up. So other things that I haven't shown, there's some exclusive figures, some surprise characters. There's going to be a lot of reveals at the panel at Joe Fest. So get ready.
Nice. Well, look, I would really like to give the, I suppose, the final word here to yourself, Bob. I had one question that I wanted to ask. how would you like to see Action Force remembered? You know, how would you like people to talk about it into the future?
Whew, that's a difficult one, Tony.
I'm gonna put you on the spot a bit there.
Yeah, I would like people to how do I put it? I mean, Action Force didn't come about by accident. Something happened before it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking about Palitoy Action Force now, and now there's Bobby Vala's Action Force. So it's never sitting still.
Yeah. I like that.
It should be moving. It should be moving all the time. I mean, even in Action Man, things were changing all the time. I mean, we put hair on, we put gripping hand on, we put eagle eyes on. So there's movement all the time. So I'd like to see it keep going on. I don't know how, but I'd like to see the name Action Force going on in some way. But I'd like people to sort of just enjoy their Action Man. So if they're a mini Action Force, if they like collecting those, good luck. You know, if they like collecting Red Shadows, you know, if they like collecting the G.I. Joe version or Bobby Vala's, it's what they enjoy and what they want, and you know, everybody's got their own choice of. You can't say that that's not Action Force or that's not Action Force. It's all Action Force, but you may just home in on your own particular preference of Action Force. So I just hope Bobby keeps it going. It goes on into the future, and somebody picks up the baton from him.
Yeah,
I'm not stopping anything
because you're not going to be around forever, Bobby, like me.
Yeah,
I don't know. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Bob. That was a great answer, and I just kind of wanted to add, or you can always be one of those crazy people like me who just collects all of it.
You're a one-off.
From 1960s Action Man through the 80s, the whole lot. I've even got some 90s Hasbro Action Man in the room here now, ready for Iconicon. So, but look, gentlemen, thank you both so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to sit down and talk about Action Force. Before we sign off, Bob, is there anything you want to plug, promote? What are you doing with the Colville Heritage Society, the museum? What's happening? It
obviously went on the back burner with the COVID.
Yeah.
And it's taken us a long time to get back in, but we still have to satisfy the National Lottery because they gave us a lot of money. So we've got things to do with local children at schools. We're still collecting memories of people that used to work at Palitoy. And we're working on a website which will have all the Palitoy product on. All the toys, all the paperwork that we got and so forth. And there'll be links on that site, there'll be links into others. So there'll be a link to Valaverse, there'll be a link to Analog Toys, link to this. So we're working on that. And we're supposed to be having a meeting when I come back from holiday. So
all right,
we'll see what happens then.
Yeah.
But just keep your eyes open to, for Colville Heritage site, which will have Palitoy on.
I definitely will, and as soon as you get a website or anything up and going, Bob, I'll definitely help do my part to get the word out there. So
that's good, great.
And Bobby, any final words?
No, I mean, this has been sort of a dream come true. Like listen, to be on the same panel with Bob is been amazing. I can't even express how giddy I am that I can come on here and talk to the guy who great
I'm a bit red at the moment, but you're making me even redder.
But then Tony, it's I was watching your show for a while, like thinking like, wow, he's like, just because I liked your show. And then when I started this line, I was like, man, I wonder what he thinks of it. And then becoming friends with Michael French, and then him saying, hey, I'm friends with Tony. I should get you two connected. And I was like, really? I was like, so it's like the fact that I'm talking to two people that if you told me 2 years ago, like, hey, you're gonna end up, hanging out with these guys for the 40th anniversary of Action Force, I'd be like, that's a funny story. But like here we are, and it's like it's kind of surreal and in a really great way. So thanks for making me a part of this.
Thanks for me then, Tony. And thanks for all you've done in the past, keeping it going.
You're very welcome, and it's going to continue. So it's been my absolute pleasure to just to know both of you, let alone to be able to sit here on this live stream with 160 odd people watching. I'm sure by tomorrow this video will have close to 1,500 views or something like that. So it's just trying to keep the dream alive, folks. So, yeah. All right. Well, to the audience, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. To my good friends Bob and Bobby, please stay on the line. Don't hang up. I need to get your details. We'll have a quick chat afterwards. So here's to 40 years of Action Force. Cheers.
40
well
more.
done, Tony. Well done.